It looks like we're getting started here. The opening here to this game is going to be mostly timed. Um, it's a lot of just clearing out waves. There are some slight time saves based on how quickly you can clear out these waves. As in order for the next wave to spawn, the previous wave has to be gone. Not a whole lot of interesting things here. Just kind of in the fight suit. There are a couple fight suit segments in this game. Most of them are pretty short. There are a couple that are a bit longer. The primary meat of the game will come around about 4.5, 5 minutes into the run.
Down. All units activate manual mode and rely on visuals to evade.
Already engaged. Free movement unlocked.
Origin point of long-range lasers confirmed.
Interesting. So here we have, you'll see Unity taking the laser hits here. It's a very minor optimization we have. There are a couple boss fights in this prologue segment that we do like to use the melee attack buff. And by taking these laser hits, we can clear out some of these unneeded recoveries, which does save a couple frames on your menuing, as you won't have to menu through quite as many things to get to the buffs that are near the bottom.
Multiple surrounding enemy air units confirmed. Requesting permission to assume mobile configuration. Permission granted.
And here both players are showing the second configuration for the flight suit. This is what they call the mobile configuration. Basically, you're in just a Gundam. You have your pod fire, and then you have your melee attacks as well. There is a light and a heavy attack in the flight suit. Most runners will never use the heavy attack as it is very slow and has a decently long cooldown before you can do any other melee inputs.
Operator to 2B, we need you to rendezvous with Unit 9S and begin gathering data on the local terrain. Understood.
Here we're going to be entering the main meat of the game here. Most of the gameplay in the game will be in this kind of 3D hack and slash kind of format. Both runners are going to be doing the exact same attack over and over again. For some reason, with the short sword and your heavy attack slot, doing a dash into a heavy attack, the game decides to output about 5 times the normal damage. Not 100% sure why the game does that, but in a speedrun, you know, we'll take whatever we can get. That in combination with attack buffs that will be used throughout the run, as well as taunting, which is done by turning your flashlight on and off quickly. The taunting will add 1.5 times damage. The damage glitch, which is the combat we're seeing here, where you throw the sword out in front of you, does about 5 times damage, and then your attack buffs will double your damage. So everything stacks up on top of each other, and most of these bosses and enemies are just going to completely melt. Here we're coming up on the first skip on Unity's side here. This is Crane Skip. Skips a lot of kind of back and forth movement to get around the factory. It saves maybe 15-20 seconds as opposed to going around. Typically, the game tells you to shoot that crane or that bridge down so you can cross that gap, but using clever use of inputs, lifts, and heavy attacks downward to gain height, we can actually just completely jump that and skip the entire walking section there, go straight to the silo. Silo 1 here, mobs are, a lot of the waves are going to be scripted. They always spawn in the same locations. The Flyers wave is actually just completely random. Sometimes they're friendly, sometimes they just don't want to group up at all. You just kind of have to take what you're given and accept your fate. Unity just did the bridge skip here, and the lava skip coming up here. The bridge skip is arguably one of the tightest for height, or the height requirement that we need for learning the run. It's very tough. It requires tight timing on every single one of your inputs in order to make it up top. As we see Dale having a little bit of issue here with it. We have to. It's a very tight window. Doing one input too early or too late can make it so that she won't make it to the top. And Unity just showed the pod program here. There are many pod programs in the game. As far as the speedrun goes, due to our money constraints, we don't really have any desire to use anything except for the base laser that we're given. The laser does a pretty significant amount of damage. And the other use for it is pod slow-mo, which we will probably see later on here.
There should be another facility across that bridge. It's a bit of a hike, but should we check it out? It's not like Command to get a location wrong. I guess even they get bad intel from time to time, huh?
I wouldn't bet on that.
Alert. High power jamming
Now we're coming up on Marks 2. So the first saw blade that we fought, there's now 2 of them. 2 of them, though, you would think, more HP, takes a longer time. That's not quite the case. In the Marks 2 fight, you actually can only deal damage to halfway. At the 50% point, you cannot deal damage to the boss anymore, as the 2 buzzsaws are actually going to be used by the final boss as arms. So here we have Angles. He has a lot of RNG based around him. His attack patterns can lose you up to 23 seconds on this next phase here. It doesn't matter out of the gate what attacks he's giving you, but after the cutscene where 9S shows up, he gets to pick one attack, and that one attack can be any of his attacks in his moveset. Anything doing like these multiple punches that we're seeing right now on Unity's screen, if he does these lose 23 seconds, and there's nothing you can do about it. There are a couple other, most of them, in general, you're going to want just to see a ranged attack. They are significantly faster. And here is the pod slow-mo as well. Pod slow-mo will slow down everything in the game except for yourself. So you see Unity's outputting damage very quickly, but Angles is moving extremely slow. And that's done by holding the pod program and then canceling it with either a pod fire or a dash, and then holding pod program again. While your pod is charging, the time will be slowed. And Unity gets good RNG here. Ranged attacks are optimal. Any of the ranged attacks will be about the same time, give or take a couple tenths of a second. So that's good to see. I'm hoping for the same here from Dale. It's really unfortunate when you see one runner get punches and one not. Being on these pipes here, it's technically out of bounds. There's not really a whole lot of purpose here for them other than we can just be out of range of Angles completely. Just kind of gives you a little break here. The prologue is a highly optimized section of the game. There is very optimal combat, and it does require a good bit of focus to get a very quick prologue. So having this break here is pretty nice.
Hacking in.
9S black box signal detected. No response to.
Here Unity showing the double lift. By doing the lift into an upward slope, you can basically trick the game into feeling like, oh, you never left the ground. And typically in an aerial combo, you're only allowed to do one lift per aerial combo. But by tricking the game into thinking you never left the ground, you actually get another lift. And it looks like Dale was unfortunate here and got punches. Pretty significant time loss for nothing you did wrong. It's really unfortunate. And Unity is into the final phase of Angles. There is a minor bit of RNG here as well, based on attacks. The story progresses based on dialogue here. So depending on where Angles is in his attack pattern, when the dialogue gets to the specific point where you're going to proceed, you can lose some time. If he starts a very long attack right as the dialogue ends, it's unfortunate. You can lose probably 6 to 7 seconds on RNG here. Looks like he's going to get decent RNG. Pretty good. It's not bad at all. And then this punch is scripted. This is the progression of the game. So whatever attack that he had done and finishes up, the next attack after that dialogue is over will always be that pushback.
Affirmative. Infiltrating enemy subunit. Behavior table adjusted. Balance controls overridden. Enemy unit subjugation complete.
Here, typically the impacts on Angles are very slow. If you just push heavy attack, it'll hit and kind of just sit there for a good 2 seconds before you can use a melee attack again with the Mark's arm there. We found that you can actually cancel the animation by dashing. So it's a very nice help just to do a heavy dash, heavy dash, heavy dash, and be done with it. And Unity's exiting the prologue here, entering into what we like to call the menu boss. Everyone's favorite thing in any game, setting up your game settings. Oddly enough, this game, despite having settings on your game creation screen, it forces you to set your settings again during the actual run itself. Just a couple of them, but it does force you to do your voice volume and brightness and turn on your self-destruct.
Morning.
Oh, it looks like Dale got unfortunate RNG here as well. Angle started his longest attack at the very end of the dialogue.
There's no.
Oh, we better. You need to be near an access point to save your data. You can see access points on the close range map. Be sure to save often.
Yeah, I need.
Doesn't-
Under.
The surface? That means we'll be getting flight units, huh? Better head for the hangar. Usually we can't get near flight units. They're way too expensive for us grunts. Too bad they can't mass produce these things yet.
And Unity's flying into one of the shorter flight segments here, just flying down from the bunker onto the into the city ruins. There is one little thing to note here. After the prologue, you actually lose any items that you had in your inventory. So this shmup, although not being super hard, it's pretty important that you don't take much damage here. You don't have any recoveries at this point in the run. So if you get low health, there's no way to heal it off. It can get a little scary. Some of these waves can really, like this, some of these waves can really lock you in place. If you get hit once, it typically turns into 3 or 4 hits. And these are what we call the fidget spinners. When they spin there, like that second one was on Unity screen, the spinning actually negates your pod fire. So you don't want to see that attack. It is maybe a second or two slower. Again, most of the RNG related in this run is just attack pattern. There is a little RNG related to what chips you are able to receive, which will increase your offensive capabilities, but nothing too game-breaking.
Target location acquired. Marking on map. Proposal. Proceed to target location.
According to our intel, none of the machines in this area are hostile. We've been seeing more and more enemies like this lately. They just stand there and stare into space. It's pretty weird.
Now Unity's coming up here too. Everyone's favorite part of any video game, doing the dreaded fetch quests. There are 2 fetch quests that we're required to do in order to progress the story. Fortunately, they're very short, but it's a fetch quest. You know, there's not a whole lot to enjoy with fetch quests. Basically, we're doing these quests because they open up the weapons trader and the normal shop that has all your recoveries and whatnot. There's 3 intro quests. They're in that resistance camp area. Basically, all they're there for is to basically give you an introduction to the game and how the merchants work. After you progress through those, it will give you your normal story quests, which will just follow the normal storyline through the entire run.
That should be enough. Let's get these back to the trader. Plant life has claimed most of the central area. Big plants, too.
Report. Records show that vegetation has grown to an abnormal size since the departure of humans.
Wonder if there are any huge boars and such, too. Okay, that's everything the supply trader asked for. Man, these chores are a real pain in the butt, huh?
The Resistance is a valuable ally to your help. By helping them, we also help ourselves. So no, I don't think they're a pain.
Yeah.
Here we're just turning in those fetch quests, get our rewards here. Game doesn't tell you specifically, but doing that weapons trader quest actually gives you all the materials required in order to upgrade our sword to level 2, which is I believe it's about an 80% increase in damage. Very important later on. Leveling up this sword will also give extra attack speed, which actually changes our movement from the dash punches, which I didn't touch on, to the dash swings, which we see from Unity here. Dash swinging is about 0.8 times faster than just spamming dashes. It's a very minor time save. It's pretty easy to get. There's not really a super strict timing. We do want to have long dashes with short swings. And here we're heading towards the desert, which is going to be the first new area of the run. There will be a big shopping part here. And we'll see Unity picking up some required items here for combat in general, some recoveries since we don't have those anymore, some melee attack buffs, ranged attack buffs, an animal bait, a sachet, which basically makes it so the animals won't immediately run away from you. It's very handy for the one point in the run where we ride an animal, and a resilience chip. Resilience is new if you haven't seen this run since Half Coordinated's run, or you've never seen a run. Resilience chip makes it so that you no longer will get staggered by enemy attacks as long as you're above 80% HP. So by having the resilience chip, we can kind of just face tank everything and not get staggered for it. Here, there's a lot of skips here that I completely was talking about something else, but first of all, Unity picked up the transporter there. That will be utilized later on. Then you saw him clip behind the barricade here. Typically, you need to talk to the NPC there in order to have her basically blow open that gate there. The dialogue section is a little bit long, so we actually just clip out of bounds. Walls are paper in this game. You can clip out of bounds many ways. And we just go around the barricade completely. By staying out of bounds the entire side of that which was Desert Discovery Skip. By staying out of bounds, that allows us to skip the cutscene that you typically would get upon entering the desert. And then we have Unity picked up the pod there. This is going to be pod C. The normal pod is the Gatling pod, which is pod A. You start with that one. Pod C is missiles. They will auto lock, but it is very slow, so we don't typically use it for its normal attack. And then pod B we will not get in this run. The main reason to get 2 pods, really unfriendly here from Don Burrows. We don't get pod C or pod B because it's RNG based on your fishing. It's a little too slow. There we're supposed to be chasing this robot around. Typically you're wanting him to burrow immediately. We can kind of use the terrain around us. The walls are coated kind of weird. So by plunging into that wall, he was actually able to slide all the way from the start to basically the next trigger that is required. And here, we're still supposed to be following this robot, but thanks to our resident glitch hunter, Marky, he has found probably about 75% of the skips that we use for this game, despite never doing a run. This is the desert housing skip. There are a couple required triggers from chasing the robot normally that we do need to get. So we'll see Unity going over here. You saw that red circle pop up on his map. That means he got the first trigger we need. And then he voided out here to respawn him on the last solid ground he was on, clip back in bounds, and hit that platform, which is the other trigger we were required to get. And then here we're entering the Atom fight. A little bit of menuing here. Buff up and switch our weapon set 1 to be identical to weapon set 2. What this allows us to do is have 2 damage glitches at the exact same time. So we'll have the first sword will be spinning, and then you can switch weapon set and then do a second damage glitch. And then that one will also be spinning, both doing a very large amount of damage. The double damage glitch we can credit to Kasern, who is our 3rd place on leaderboards at the moment. Cut the time of this run by probably about 5 minutes. Pretty easily. It's a pretty large time save. Looks like we're having a little bit of frames here. If you want to see who's second on the leaderboards, you can check the leaderboard. Here it was the pit, what we call the pit fight. This is where pretty much all of the chips that we will be getting in the run come from. So ideally you want to kill as many of those robots as possible. And here's the Atom phase. Arguably the worst boss fight in the run. I'd probably say 50% of us think this fight's the worst, and 50% of us think a later fight is worse. But it is a very, he can be very annoying with the counter attacks, and like we're seeing here, when he's doing the counter attacks, you can't deal damage to him, and it's really annoying. Pretty solid fight still. Sub 30 minutes for Atom is pretty good. We're coming up here on the what the reason is for that transporter pickup at the beginning of the desert
Looks like we're
segment.
safe now.
What the hell?
It saves time. We typically use loadless timing for the
Never seen
leaderboards,
shit like that before. We better
but
report
as this
everything
isn't a real-time comparison,
Let's move to
we
an area
won't
with
see it
more
on the
reception
timer.
so we can contact command.
But the use for the transporter saves time both in real time as well as loadless. Just saves more time in the loadless. Here we're going to push that box a little bit, and by doing so, we should be able to clip through this. And then by using a quick dash, we can actually stay out of bounds here. Jump onto this invisible floor that you can't see. This skips a dialogue trigger, which allows us to open the start menu. Being able to open the start menu is huge because we can save and then load our save file from there. Loading that save file will put us at the transporter that we picked up earlier at the beginning of the desert. And which... Oh, there we go. Dale's got it. Good.
Maybe we should.
And here we have one of the more important choices in the run. There are ways around it, but if you definitely want to say continue fighting here in order to progress the story without having to use other means or go all the way back to Resistance Camp.
We've lost contact with several Yorha units that were on their way to the surface. Their black boxes are online, so we presume they're still alive. We've tracked the location of their signals, so I need all Yorha units on the surface to head over and investigate. End transmission.
I heard something about that back at the Resistance camp.
Target location confirmed. I'm worried about the other androids. We should probably check this out. Looks like our surface route's been cut off.
Very
So
nice.
2B, those machines out in the desert
Unity getting the
just like
plunge into the
androids,
sewer there.
Right.
but we androids were
Looks great,
programmed
saves a
to
very, very
use
minor amount of
machines
time.
try to look like us.
Ladders are slow in this game though. You will see throughout the run
I suppose.
any chance we have to skip, especially the top part of a ladder, if not the whole thing, we're going to take every opportunity to skip over it. There is a little animation at the top of the ladder. Ooh, a little too close to the trigger there. There is an animation at the top of the ladders where 2B kind of does a flip off of the top of it. It's very slow. We want to avoid that at all costs.
Wow, this is weird.
Dale is starting the Atom fight here. See how he does. And then Unity is doing the Let's Play skip. I believe he's going to do the normal Let's Play skip. There are two variants here. One of them will skip the roller coaster ride completely. Well, skip having to be on the roller coaster for the ride. And the other one, which is what Unity is going for here. We're skipping a couple cutscenes here. And then we're going to ride the elevator to go to the Bouvar fight.
What's this?
Analysis.
Do not blame him for taking a safer path. It is a very, it's a very tight skip to do the roller coaster one. Do not blame anybody unless they're in like the top 3 or 4 seeds for not going for it.
Hey, 2B,
Yes?
people who know me well usually call me Nines. So,
Oh,
so what do you think?
oh.
I mean, if you want to call me Nines, it's totally okay.
Let's see what drop up I think it was. So this actually, I don't believe any of us have covered this in any of the matches, but typically cutscenes will loot or loot the enemy drops for you. When they do loot your drops, they actually double it for some reason. So if you have, say, a dented plate drops, and you don't pick it up manually, the cutscene will pick up 2 dented plates. There's a couple sections, though, that it doesn't do that. and the roller coaster is actually one of them. It's rare, but you can get some really good chips off of roller coaster. So personally, if you're on the roller coaster, I feel like you should be picking up your items, which was good. It's good to see someone doing that. And Dale's coming up on the save scum here, which is what we call this. And Unity is doing the Guvar fight. A little bit, I didn't see exactly what happened. There is a way to half cycle this so that she doesn't go so far from the stage. I don't know if he got hit or he was just a little too slow. I couldn't tell. And here, hopefully the only hacking section in the game, or in the run for Unity here. It is possible to have more of them in this fight. These androids here on the crucifixes can send out these little waves or circles in front of them. And if you come in contact with either of those, it'll throw you into the same kind of hacking mini game. Each hack you have loses 4 to 6 seconds, depending on how long it takes you to do it. So ideally, you're not getting hacked at all here. Very well done.
Saturation attack triggered by enemy consciousness data. Failure to
And there we saw Unity SD or self-destruct here at the end of the fight here. This is to prep for a death warp coming up here. The one and only one in the run. Unfortunately, we'll never have a deathless run that doesn't lose a lot of time to not doing it. It is significantly faster to do this death warp. Doing the self-destruct will put you on the 1 HP here. Everything will one-shot you. Doing the small recovery here that Unity did will put your health high enough that you can still do the... you have access to your self-destruct again, and most things will kill you in one shot still, which is good. Dale's coming into amusement park here. I'm not sure. I believe he goes for a Let's Play skip. Yes, he does. Good. That was a very interesting out of bounds there.
So why don't the machines, or the aliens who created them, attack the bunker?
Ooh, a little bit short of that ground.
Space, right?
Well, there are a few theories about that, but no one knows for sure. Hard to tell what an alien is thinking, you know?
They all have white flags.
Looks like they really don't want to fight.
There we go. Nicely done here. And here, Unity is getting a kind of a delivery quest here. Basically, Pascal is giving us an item to give to Anemone in the Resistance camp. And then Anemone is going to give us an item to give to Pascal. So a little bit of back and forth, but thanks to the death warp here, it's not too bad. Doesn't take too much time. At this point, Unity is lucky here and has found a boar. Oh, maybe not.
2B here. What's wrong?
Oh, yep, he still gets the boar. Good. So we have found that when riding a boar, if you just keep hitting the jump button and jump repeatedly, it's actually faster than it is to just run normally on the boar.
I am definitely not not the person to discuss this with.
It's kind of silly.
I don't think I can stand spending one more day in this bunker.
You leaving would be bad for me. It would affect mission efficiency.
Are you saying you need me to be?
Also here, it was worth noting, and going back to the Death Warp,
Require the assistance of
Unity
others.
saved in Pascal's village. Doing so makes it so that when he does perform this Death Warp here, after getting this item from Anemone, the game will reset him to his last save point and put him in Pascal's village, but it actually saves your story progress. So the item that he received from Anemone will still be in his inventory. By dying there, the only things you would lose is a little bit of EXP and any chips that you have equipped. But as we have not equipped chips at this point in the run, losing a little EXP is not a big deal. There will be a lot of minor dialogue cancels. You'll see here you saw him pod fire as he came out of that transporter. All of the dialogue cancels that you'll see in this run are because you can never have more than one active dialogue at once. So by overwriting long chunks of dialogue with a shorter chunk of dialogue, actually ends up saving time, as you can't interact with other things, or so it limits your inputs and a lot of other things. So, and it looks like, oh, never mind. I thought that was the end of Vovar for Dale there. I thought he had SD'd too early and got the level up. Oh, ooh. Yeah, we're getting hacked once here. Oh no. Now, these hacks can be rather unforgiving. Because of the camera angle the way it is, a lot of the time if you get hacked once, it kind of dominoes like this. It's really hard to get back on track after you get hacked once. Here, Unity is coming up to city angles. The boss from the prologue, there's now 2 of them in the city ruins. Fortunately, only one of them is required. There are a couple ways to skip this. The first of which is the easier and faster way. It can be a little finicky. We'll see if Unity gets it here. Ooh, not quite. There is a hole in that wall. You can just double jump and dash through that wall. If you mess it up that first time, though, your chance is gone. At that point, we can use the rubble towards the front there. Use that slope in order to get a double lift, and we can actually just jump straight over the trigger. It's going to be a common theme throughout this run. There will be a lot of walls that are just clearly not short enough or not tall enough. They were meant to keep us in, but they were definitely not done well enough. Oh no. Unity was a little bit far away on that pod program, the first one. Ideally, the double pod program and the fight unit will instant kill angles here. Unfortunate. It's a little bit tough with the way the camera pans in there sometimes. Now Unity is heading towards negotiations. Here there was that phone call, which if you heard it when it started, it did the little ring. That will never happen for the rest of this run. After going through this, by interrupting this call dialogue with 9S's dialogue there, The game never exits you from the state of being on a phone call. So in doing so, any any phone calls into the rest of this run will never ring because the game reads it as, oh, you're already in a phone call. So any of the phone calls will not have the little ring. It saves about 2 to 3 seconds per phone call, as the dialogue will just start immediately. We call that Skype glitch. I'm not exactly sure who came up with that name. I believe it was one of our older runners, Lexicona, but I can't remember for sure.
You seek are no longer here. They were wiped out centuries ago by us, the machines.
Wiped out?
And who knows? Perhaps we'll wipe out the androids next. Machines are weapons capable of evolution. We can grow.
So here in the negotiations fight, there's a very long dialogue. Adam and Eve really like to talk. This fight is tied to the dialogue. It's on a timer based on the dialogue. You can kill him once here. Ideally, you kill him once here, you get a level up from killing him here, and then a level up when the game ends the fight at the end of the dialogue. So we can kind of get an extra level up here.
Now they are interesting.
Why them?
Because they are an enigma. They killed uncountable.
And since he's done here, oh,
And yet
unfortunate attack there.
it's fascinating.
Since he's done here, another
Possibly drives
another point where the wall was clearly not coded to be tall enough.
unraveling this
We can actually just jump completely out of this fight here.
allow you to assist us.
Since this fight is tied to the dialogue,
Assist you with
unfortunately we can't just run forward and progress the game, but what this does allow us to do is we can clear out these caves of enemies,
In order to
which will allow us to do dash swings, which are faster through the caves on the way out. We can also, which it looks like Unity's not going to go for it here, there is a chest there that contains 3 titanium alloys, which is the 3 titanium alloys are required to level the sword to level 3, but the 2 of the 4 drops required are completely RNG drops. There's no way we've been able to route in the particular drops that we need. So going for the level 3 virtuous contract is really just an RNG kind of just hope and pray you get it. It's a pretty big damage increase and a decent attack speed increase. And here we have Dale's finishing up the death warp here,
care to fill me
getting ready to head towards City
They
Engels.
let you transfer your consciousness to a temporary body back in the bunker.
Hey, you're up next.
And Unity is going to be transporting around, talking to some people, and then heading towards the forest section.
That the guns of your this knowledge of under.
Here we have another form of dialogue cancel. Interacting with 9S,
Rest a little bit too.
you can typically interact with 9S to change his combat style in the game, and we can use that to open a dialogue box, walk through the trigger of another dialogue, and they'll both just fizzle each other out. It saves maybe a second or two there.
We pass us for where
And here we'll see what ships Unity has here, either here or after the next fight. Let's see. Here we're going to sell the small buffs we have the last 15 seconds in order to just swap them out for large buffs that last for 30. We'll sell some of the system chips here and we'll cap out our medium recoveries. It looks like Unity is going for the defense buffs. They're not required. They do make the run feel a lot safer, to me in particular, but it's completely player's choice here. Oh boy, did he? Oh, he remembered. Good. I was like, ooh. He actually forgot to equip his resilience here. Okay, so Unity has a resilience and 2 shockwaves. Not ideal chips, but any offensive chips are better than none. Oh, I think Dale's stream, I think, is frozen.
No,
Oh, never mind, it's moving a little bit.
Say, 2B,
What?
when do you think you'll be willing to call
I know
me
he was
nuts?
talking about this being an
That ass
issue.
works just fine.
Well, yeah, but
I can mention this real quick.
man, this job can be pretty rough sometimes, huh?
We don't get to choose our assignments, and you should work on keeping your opinions in check. Yorha aren't allowed to be emotional, remember?
I think some of us are better at that than others. This must be the commercial structure Pascal was talking about. The records say it was once a facility known as a shopping center.
No.
And here Unity had the
Who the heck is the Forest King?
You're getting distracted.
4 robots here.
I'm a skip. Check this guy.
You have to kill these 4 robots in order to progress here. There was a little bit of a dialogue skip there at the beginning with the 9S interaction. Oh, it looks like Dale's is better now. Okay, good. Looks good here. And let's see if Dale gets the instant. There we go, yeah. There we go. So that shows the power of the pod programs on Dale's side there. 2 pod programs can actually one-shot that angles. Very well done.
Better keep your guard up.
I'm aware of how to fight. You just be careful.
And Unity is into the forest section. There's a lot of skips here. Some of them are pretty tight inputs. It'll be interesting to see if Unity goes for one of our newer skips here that we have dubbed Rainbow Road. There is another skip that is significantly easier, saves still a good chunk of time, but a little bit less than Rainbow Road, called Mario Kart, so it'll be interesting to see which one he goes for. And it looks like he's going to go for Mario Kart. So, oh no. Yes, this one is going to be RTA. So here on Mario Kart, basically what we're doing is we'll plunge up into that corner and hold the self-destruct, which will trick the game into thinking that you have already been in the castle. So once you void out, it respawns you on your on what it thinks is your last grounded location, which was in the castle. So the drown zone is actually going to put you back by the castle. Oof. Camera can be a little wonky with this route. There is an out of bounds here that we need. Looks like he's going to go for the pod launch. We can clip out of bounds from both sides of this route. There we go. The pod launch is a little bit slower. I've found it to be a little more lenient, personally, but you can do a dash into a punch from the other side of the route as well. And then these conveniently placed windows out of bounds. Climb up these conveniently placed stairs that you can't get to normally, and we skip the entire castle section completely. We go back a little bit towards that transporter. There is a required trigger there, and then we run up into A2, up into the A2 fight here. And Dale is doing the negotiations escape. Very nice. Got it with the counter attack there.
2B, that's an android.
A little bit far away from where he needs to
This
be.
unit is currently wanted by Yorha. Annihilation
This
is recommended.
the negotiations escape can be weird with the camera. You kind of have to just do the skip off of the mini map. There's no real other easy way to do it with the way the camera is.
We've picked up a signal from the black
It's a
box
little bit
located
weird.
known as A2.
And here A2,
See in front of you is your enemy.
solid A2 fight.
She deserted us.
A2 can dash off screen and be untargetable. Ideally, you never want to see that, so that was a pretty good fight. Here, looks like Unity's going. Oh, looks like he's going for the double lift method. There we go. That works too. So typically, there's an invisible wall there that will push you back into the arena area and tell you to pursue A2, and to kind of just jump out the window that she did. There's a very, very long dialogue waiting for you outside that window. So fortunately we found, again, walls have not been programmed to be high enough. So we can completely just bypass that invisible barrier that says to pursue A2. And by passing to the other side of the wall, the game will actually push you outside of the arena instead of inside. So by doing that, we can use that transporter and just teleport directly back and progress the story.
Why did you ask Pascal about A2?
Huh?
It's not recommended to interface.
And here we'll have another minor dialogue skip here.
Thanks.
We'll cut off the conversation a little bit there between 9S and 2B with the jukebox area dialogue. And we'll do the easiest skip in the game, jump between that computer and the box, and you're out of bounds. We'll be heading towards the flooded city section. Here will be the first point where you'll see a double plunge. Kind of the same deal with the double plunge as there is with the double lift. If you do the plunge while you're already in a grounded state, the game will register as you have not done a plunge yet. So then you can immediately do another plunge. Allows you to cover a lot of horizontal and downward distance very quickly. So that first plunge he did was to get a trigger, get that flooded city cutscene, required trigger, and then the second plunge down after the game refreshed him to the previous grounded position was to move from one drown zone to the next, voiding out in the drown zone over here that would place you right on this shore section here, save a good chunk of time on movement.
I think that's the last of the machines.
And there's a dialogue there as well on that building he just jumped on that interrupted the current dialogue. And I think Dale's game is stuck again, maybe? No, Dale said he was having some issues with this the last couple. Okay, there it is. Very good. And Unity is now in the most annoying sequence in the entire run. It's a very long auto-scroller. Typically about 14 to 15 minutes long of just auto-scroller. Not a whole lot you can do on a lot of these this fight to save time. There's a little bit of time save on the actual Grun segments. All these little all these waves that you're clearing out, which is kind of the same as all the other shmup sequences. Very minor time save based on when you kill the last mob of each wave, but it's nothing too major as long as you're not letting anything get off the screen. The one thing to worry about here is 9S can take your kills. The way the EXP works with this game is whoever gets the final hit on each enemy gets the EXP. So if 9S is killing a lot of these mobs, then you're just losing out on a lot of EXP. Oh, it's not too big of a deal with the mobs, but on the boss fights of this section, having 9S take one of those is a pretty significant dip in your EXP. And I actually did not see what chips Dale had there. He's headed into the forest area here. We'll see how his skips go over here. Probably going to pay not too much attention to Unity for a little while here. This section, there's not really a lot to talk about.
I'm picking up a large-scale enemy inbound. Looks to be 2.8 clicks southwest of us.
This is the first pseudo-boss kind of fight here for Grun that Unity's in. This really shows off the power of having the two pods. The two pods because they do have separate program cooldowns. This boss basically dies in 4 programs plus like a tiny bit extra damage. Looks like something happened here for Goliath to have so much health left though after 4 programs.
Enemy aerial unit destroyed. Reverting back to area recon.
Wait, I'm still picking
Here,
up a
Dale's coming up on what I believe he will be going for Mario Kart.
If it's that big, we should be able to see it.
Yes. Oh no, he did the same thing as Unity.
Is that a machine?
It's freaking huge.
Should do it. Look pretty clean. Huh. That respawn point can be a little weird for the Mario Kart skip. I couldn't quite tell. It looked like maybe he let go of the SD a little early. That should, yeah. That was almost spot on the trigger there, so. Or the drown zone.
Command is attempting to launch a satellite laser strike on your target, but the enemy's electromagnetic camouflage is making it impossible to aim.
And it looks like he's going to go for the punch quip.
Oh, is that all?
Oh.
I know, but it's the only way.
Proposal. Destroy the generator quickly.
And the one thing to worry about with the Forest Castle skip here, you don't have to worry about clipping in bounds on these windows. These windows don't. They actually have a wall coded in, so you can't clip in bounds on these windows. The very top of this skip, though, you can clip through the roof. So you want to land on the very edge there. Nicely done by Dale as well. If you go too far into the middle section of that roof, you'll just fall back into the castle, and then at that point, there will be an invisible wall that spawns around the out-of-bounds section that we were just in for the Forest Castle. In doing so, the you actually are forced to go through the castle the normal winding path. It's a pretty big time loss. You don't want to see that happen. Skip is not too hard to learn, to be honest. It's just kind of getting into your rhythm there. Learn how much or how sensitive your inputs are and whatnot. And Dale is actually using slow-mo here on A2. A2 can be one of the scariest bosses in the run, especially for newer runners. A2 has very quick attacks, and they all do a large chunk of damage, especially without defense buffs. It looks like Dale has opted for defense buffs, but they have run out. I hope he realizes. Yes, okay. Good. It always worries me. And Unity just finishing up core 1 of Grun. There will be 3 of those. The sub-cores that are rotating around the smaller glowing orbs, you have to kill all 4 of those before you can target the middle one. And the middle one will be what actually takes out the core itself. It can kind of troll you. You always hope not to see it, but sometimes if you kill the sub-cores a little too slowly, it can rotate past the next sub-cores and just go right back to where it was, leaving you with 2 completely untargetable sub-cores, as you can only target 2 of them per rotation. So you hope to never see that, but Grun typically has other plans.
All the EMP shielding in the world won't help against close-range mortar fire.
Got it.
I'll help aim.
This thing's armor is too thick. We need more firepower.
2B, let's try for a more direct approach.
Here, there's a couple strategies for what Unity's doing here. You do have to get 3 of these shots in Grun's mouth. By spamming the fire button once the mouth is open, you can actually just continue to get the shots into the mouth instead of waiting for each cycle to advance. Some people will use just a stabilizing shot at a particular spot in the dialogue in order to time it. What Unity did was the other method, which is just quickly firing the mortar every single time. And by doing that, it basically accomplishes the same thing. I've found that it's a little more inconsistent, but each runner is very different. One of the things that I like so much about this game is the variance that you see between runners. There's multiple ways to do skips and all kinds of stuff in this game, so you don't actually see the exact same execution from one runner to the next. It's very interesting to see how much change you see.
No! He has a plan. Just hold on.
I'm going to see if we can use those missiles back on the shore. But I need you to destroy the EMP unit on that thing's back. Otherwise, they're just going to go off course.
On.
Nice. And so something to note on what Dale did there, he actually didn't do the drown zone. There's a couple reasons for that. One, being on PS4, the load times are a decent bit longer than PC. Doing this just the straight double plunge that we saw from Unity, typically the PS4 will not have loaded that area yet by the time you void out. So you actually have to slow down how quickly you void out in order to respawn in the right spot. And then it was further timed by one of our other PS4 runners, TechTheist. He actually found that it was a little bit faster for PS4 to actually just skip the void out completely and just plunge down that direction and then just clip back in bounds normally. And now we have 2 people. Now that we have 2 people in the Disco Whale and Resident Sleeper and Sleeping Accommodation fight, I feel like it is a good time to note the Automata speedrun community has a very, very sizable bounty for someone to find a skip for this section of the game in the context of the A ending speedrun. I believe the current bounty is about $2,000 plus a homemade pizza sent to you in the mail. Don't ask how that's going to work, but there is a very large bounty for this skip. We have been looking and looking and looking and cannot find anything. As cool as this fight is casually, I thoroughly enjoyed this in my casual playthrough. In the context of a speedrun, you know, doing an auto-scroller for 15 minutes is not exactly fun, especially when you're getting into the point where you've done hundreds and hundreds of runs, like myself. It's boring. Not necessarily the hardest fight, but it's just boring. You get tired of doing it. The music's great, atmosphere's great. I feel like the fight is fine. It's just too long. Just way too long. Oh, looks like Unity's buffs had run out. I can't tell. Yeah, it looks like his buffs had run out, which is why that core hasn't died yet. There we go. Couple early pauses there, it's fine. And fortunately now one runner is out of the boring part of the run. The only part that I enjoy about that fight is it's kind of the gatekeeper. And getting past that fight there, you really unlock the cool part of the run. Some of the coolest skips in the game, coolest fights, coolest the music. Some of the music at the end of the game is very good. It's a lot of fun from the end of Groon until the end of the run. Here we're tricking some of the, or going into different drown zones, progresses a little farther, very minor, but any time save you can get. And we are coming up on one of the most infamous skips here. Not necessarily a hard skip to execute, very precise angle though. It is just a simple hold of your heavy attack at a specific angle. The angle can be very finicky. I'm not sure. I believe Unity does keyboard and mouse setup for this, I believe. You can do it with controller. Keyboard and mouse, I will say, is easier. I have tried it. The issue with keyboard and mouse is sometimes this game does not like switching inputs in the middle of gameplay. Some people, like myself, get it worse than others, but you can get it like an input glitch where it continuously is registering a keyboard input even if you're using the controller, and it can really throw off a lot of your menuing and stuff like that. But that's a whole nother story. There are some runners who do it with controller, myself included, because of said glitch, but keyboard and mouse is significantly easier. I have experimented with it, and I would love to have access to it. Here we're entering arguably the best music of the run.
I or we
And we're gonna see a mansplaining skip here.
keen interest in
Um,
humanity,
Adam really likes to talk,
family,
and we don't want to hear it.
religion.
So we're gonna clip out of bounds here.
Records I unearth,
Um,
the more
his dialogue is split into 3 separate chunks. There's one kind of long one, like a really short one, and then a really long one at the end.
it's grand, don't you
Um,
think?
so we want to interrupt the third segment of dialogue.
And yet it's currently
Once Adam says only then,
graveyard.
we're going to interrupt that dialogue with the dialogue from trying to leave the area that the pod will do here. We're going to wait, and
Only then.
Proposal.
there it is.
Search for
Very
evidence.
nice. And in doing that, we skip the entire last chunk of dialogue. Saves a very large chunk of time, about 40 to 45 seconds if I can remember correctly. It's a very big time save. There are possible soft locks. That is one of them, and probably one of the worst. It is a very hard soft lock. There is no way out of it other than reloading your game. So, if you get stuck in that elevator, I'm sorry. And here, this phase is dialogue based. Once the dialogue starts, you actually don't need to damage him anymore, as his HP will reset for the final phase here. And then here, this is just do damage as quickly as you can, but like the other Adam fight, he can do iframe attacks where he's untargetable. So ideally you're looking to not see those. Unity had a couple of them, but still a pretty solid fight. Especially considering he actually has no critical chips. I do remember that. I'm not positive on what Dale has, but I know Unity had 2 Shockwave 1s and a Resilience chip. That's it. Here, another dialogue skip. Walk through a trigger with a dialogue box open. Skip the dialogue. Doing that allows us to read this required mail to progress the story before having to go to the factory section. In doing that, we save time because we're not waiting for Pascal to arrive at the factory. Whereas the old route, we'd kind of be waiting around for about 10 seconds doing nothing. Because Pascal does not actually spawn at the factory until after this dialogue is finished.
Well, 2 days ago, I was contacted by some machines that disconnected themselves from the network. They wanted to discuss a peace treaty.
No kidding.
Apparently, they're seeking to form an alliance of some kind with our village.
If that's what they want, why don't they move in?
I believe they're working on building a colony of their own.
You don't say.
Indeed. Apparently, it's located in the abandoned factory. I can give you the coordinates if you'd like.
Please.
I was actually planning to go speak with them myself, you know. Maybe we can meet up over there?
Sounds good.
Target location data obtained. Marking on map.
And here that dialogue is finished, so Pascal will be up here waiting for us.
Oh, 2B. Hello.
And here we're ready to enter the factory.
Pleasure helping out here.
This is
You should
one of the coolest skips.
be rather
This is definitely the coolest skip in this run.
yes.
Very hard to learn,
We no longer share
but it feels very satisfying once you start getting it down. I would even argue that in all the speedruns that I've watched and seen, this is one of the coolest skips that I've seen in a while. It's a lot of dancing around out of bounds, jumping from trigger to trigger, just going straight for each required trigger. And basically skipping the entire section here. It's really cool. It's really cool to see when done properly. I'm not sure how he got a double lift there, but okay. Yeah, here we're just waiting for this priest robot here to unlock the elevator. Unfortunately, we have not found a way to speed him up, but you know, I kind of see it as the calm before the storm. Here we have probably the hardest skip to learn, and then we have an insane boss rush all the way to the
So why
end.
are you still here?
How many is it again? 5, 1, 2, 5 bosses in a row after this skip. So it's kind of the calm before you end up having to focus pretty heavily for the rest of this run. And Dale is coming up on core 2, I believe this is. I believe so. There is an out of bounds here in this room that Unity is coming into. I believe he does the Mook's room skip. We call this the Mook's room. It saves 6 to 8 seconds. Typically, you have to kill a set number of these mobs before the elevator will open. We'll see if he goes. Yes, he is going for. Oh no, he is not. Okay, he's just going to go ahead and kill them. The skip does save a little bit of time, but you do lose a lot of experience for it because you're not killing these mobs. It's kind of, some runners like it, some runners don't. By voiding out, you can unlock that elevator instantly, but more often than not, you forfeit level 20 by the end of the run. So some runners are more comfortable being level 20 for the end, and other ones don't mind being level 19. Here, this is the 9S room. Typically after that, the elevator will lock after you move a certain distance away from it. By voiding out here, we actually reset the elevator's position, so it's back in the down state. From there, we can call the elevator and go back up to where we just came from. The Mook's room is the highest point in the entire factory segment. From here, we're just going to be out of bounds, plunging from trigger to trigger, skipping all of the running sequences, all of the crushers, hopefully. The crushers are very scary. They one-shot kill you if you get hit by them, so ideally we'd like to skip those. Here we're out of bounds. Here we're going to try and drop down. Nicely done there. Good. So typically if the game reads you as falling for a long enough time, it'll respawn you on your the last solid ground you touched. So by jumping down there, we can do like kind of a pod hover, get the trigger that's right by the door there that we fall down to, and then the game will respawn us back up top. By doing that, we can then plunge down to the other side, which is where the second required trigger is here. And then we'll ride this elevator up, and we will be right at the very end. Skip all of the running and go directly into the boss fight. And Dale is finished with Grun here, heading towards Copied City. Looks like he got the drown warps there pretty good. I do want to see, I'm actually curious on if he has crits or not. I haven't actually been watching his combat too much. Here Unity is just hanging out. The top of this bridge is considered out of bounds. You can kind of get yourself wedged up there. And by doing that, all you're doing is really avoiding the boss. Right in this phase, he's invulnerable while he has that glowing shield around him. So 9S is hacking the system so that he can turn the power off in the factory, and doing so take the shield off. So here we're just kind of waiting around. Dale's very close here on Copied City. His angle's very, very close. Oh no. Unity waited around a little too long there. There it is. Well done. Took a couple tries, but that skip is extremely difficult. And here on DaleDukk's screen, you see the one of the downsides to PS4. That elevator in particular takes significantly longer to load in than on PC. And if you go in that area where the elevator is, so a soft lock. It is a soft lock because on PS4, as soon as you walk into that area, the game will realize, oh, you're in an area that's not loaded, and prioritize it. So, in doing so, it will load the elevator around you and it. So that is a soft lock that can happen there. Unity had a pretty rough Soshi fight here. Waited around a little too long on top of the bridge, and ideally we don't break a leg anymore. We do damage quick enough with the double damage glitch that breaking a leg on Soshi actually slows the fight down. And here Unity is coming up on the final out of bounds of the run. Doing the same skip we did at the end of prologue. It's kind of neat how it goes full circle. You just one of the earliest skips in the run, and you end the run with it as your final out of bounds. And he'll be entering the boss rush here. Looks like Dale having a little bit of issue with the mansplaining here. He got out of bounds, but if you fall between these wall like this, the controls don't know what to do. It's really hard to get your bearings and actually get out of the fight. He didn't get it there. That's good.
I'm back to the resistance camp. What about you?
Oh, I'll probably wander back to the village. I have plenty on my plate there.
I see.
This is the resistance camp.
Say again? I'm not receiving.
Scanning for interference.
Oh no. Unity getting stuck in one of those perfect evade locks, and Dale got an interesting lighting bug there. Usually that lighting bug happens if you've been in the elevator for a little too long on mansplaining. The screen will kind of go black like that. It won't stay that way, but it will kind of fade really dark and then come back again. It's a little bit scary.
Relay system.
Affirmative.
Trying to see. I'm watching Dale's screen to see if I can see any crits here. Unity is here, skipping the initial initial robots there in the camp, as we only actually need to kill this back portion. You do have to be a little careful with your pacing here. You can kill these enemies too quickly. If you kill them too quickly, then some mobs will just kind of spawn in behind you. It makes it really tough to deal with. And then that very large Goliath at the very end as well. After that, he will be heading to Bokushi, as Dale is finishing up the copied city here and getting ready to start factory. Bokushi is basically like Soshi, the fight we just had, except he can electrify the water here. It can be a little bit hard to deal with, and it looks like... Yeah, Unity realized, Unity actually had... So, because he had forgotten to equip Resilience on the first chipset, and then he threw it in the second one, he actually never equipped the second one. He realized that there. I actually did not realize he didn't do that either. Resilience is a huge help, especially in this late game section, where these bosses can really stagger you. A pretty good vacuum there. And it looks like Dale's actually doing the older route here for factory.
I'm fine.
You do need to do a dialogue skip and able to do the one we saw Unity do. So what you'll see on Dale's screen is when he gets to the factory, he's actually going to need to wait around a little bit for Pascal to spawn. Unity is finishing up Core 1. We drag it up on that hill there. The core has most of its attacks will raise it off the ground a bit. So by fighting it on a slope like that, we can ensure that we can hit it at all points in time. Just do damage normally, and it usually will disappear rather quickly.
Can you hear me? Our village is under...
Pascal? Come in, Pascal! Shit!
Now, as soon as Dale got there, Pascal actually spawned in, so... Just as he was walking up there, Pascal spawned.
Seems the machines on the network have gone berserk.
Pretty good
They blocked
timing.
the entrance to the village and are trying to hold them off, but with these weapons, there's only...
And here we have Core 2.
Let's take these guys out
Same kind of
first.
deal as Core 1. The hitbox is significantly more lenient for this one. Core 1's hitbox was just the core. Core 2's the hitbox is actually the entire snake-like body for it. So you can save a good chunk of time here. Okay. And Unity did hit level 20. Very nice.
The machines on the network all went berserk at the same moment.
And Unity is going to be coming into
They had gone mad.
the final fight of the run here.
If we destroy this presiding unit,
Multi-phase
stop the
fight
rise.
here. We'll be fighting Eve here. He has 4 phases.
Current position.
There are some interesting things going on that I'll explain as they come.
We'll take care of
Each phase kind of has its own gimmick to it.
Okay?
Do be careful.
Everything must die!
So here in the first phase, we're trying to damage him quickly, but he can pick an attack. Around 50% HP, he has the ability to pick an attack that we call platforms. Right around here, he has the chance to pick it. We got lucky here, he did punches. If he picks platforms, he'll kind of channel energy and then jump up onto these floating platforms in the sky. You can lose anywhere from 5 seconds to minutes, depending on how good or bad you are at climbing the platforms.
I'm going to try even shutting
Fortunately, if you do damage at the right speed, you can skip that phase completely.
Protecting Unit 9S while he hacks the system.
And entering phase 2 here, we're waiting for 9S to hack. The speed that 9S hacks is actually dependent on how quickly you do damage. So here he's going to hack. There it is. And we will enter phase 3. This is where Eve is becoming a very, very angry man. And Dale is actually going for the Mook's room skip here. This is what Unity did not do. By voiding out there, it actually unlocks the elevator immediately in exchange for losing some EXP. Phase 3 for Eve on Unity's screen, he's just flying around. We have access to our pod fire. There are some strategies for it. Some people opt to use the pod programs more for damage. Other people will try and do melees as Unity is doing here. Personally, it's kind of a mixture that I've found to be the quickest. You kind of it's pretty tight to do. It's easier with resilience, but you have to be really quick with your inputs. You have to think on your toes for it. The pod launch strat here that he's using, a lot of runners use it. It will interrupt his attacks, so if you time your pod launch correctly and aim it, then you can stagger him out of an attack. which is the main reason a lot of people, oh boy, it's the main reason a lot of people use the pod launch. I'm more of a fan of the high jump personally. The high jump strategy, you don't have to rely so much on aiming, you just follow them around. Like Dale? Ooh, unfortunate. Dale actually fell all the way down on factory skip here. So in doing this, he did lose the second part of factory. He does skip one set of the crushers, but we will see the final set here. And Unity finishing up Eve. Phase 4, you only have your pod fire and your slow walk. So it's really at the mercy of where Eve decides to go. He can stay right next to you, or he could be completely far away. It's a pretty good phase 4. And a 136.07 RTA. So that's probably around a 1.5 or 134, like a mid 134 on loadless timing, which is our typical timing. And here we're going to see Dale finishing up here on factory. He'll be coming up on Soshi. Or, yes, Soshi, I'm sorry. Let's see if we can get Unity in.
Alert. Energy shield detected over enemy unit. Physical defense shield detected. Analysis. Both long and close range attacks are ineffective.
Oh, now what?
Large energy supply detected within this factory. Proposal. Energy source should be destroyed.
Nidus, that Goliath we just encountered.
I got it. I've been keeping an eye on you. I'm gonna shut off power to the factory now.
So it looks like, so here's Dale showing too. So if you can't get on top of that bridge, this is what happens. So she will try and attack you. Getting on top of the bridge is just kind of like it's a convenient strat. I think Dale's gonna actually go for the... I'm interested to see. Early on, a lot of runners will actually go for the for breaking the leg, which is not a bad strategy early on. You only really start seeing the time loss from breaking the leg once you get really, really comfortable with your combat. So it is it's a normal thing to see it happen for sure. I know I did it for a while. I mean, it was a while before we even time we were losing by breaking a leg, but very nice. Let's see, I'm trying to think. There is a chance of PV, I believe, for Dale. What was his time RTA? Let's see. His PB is a 151.55 RTA. So he does have a chance of PBing. It depends a lot on how his endgame fights go, but it does have a chance. Ooh, no. Yeah, there we see that skip. You can get stuck on a lot of those little pillars that are in the background. Fortunately, Dale got out pretty quickly there. They can really be bad. There are times when you can get stuck behind one, get out of it, and then immediately get stuck in it again.
That was certainly something.
um,
I had no
it's
idea
pretty
that
bad.
space existed beneath the abandoned factory. I need to return and investigate as soon as possible. When I do, perhaps you'd be willing to join me?
No thanks. I'm heading back to the resistance camp. What about you?
Oh, I'll probably wander back to the village. I have plenty on my plate there.
I see.
This is the resistance camp.
Say again? I'm not receiving.
Scanning for interference.
The machine requesting it. Backup. Forces in range. Please, we can...
Let's move.
I think Dale's actually gonna opt to. Okay, never mind. I thought he was gonna maybe go over the bear.
Try contacting the bunker via laser relay system.
Our old strategy was to go around, go over the barricade, but we actually found that going down the bridge the normal way actually was a little bit quicker, just because of beelining properly.
You got
Dale was trying to use slow-mo here. Slow-mo, it looks like he's just doing slow-mo single damage glitches, which is perfectly fine. That was actually the previous method of combat until we found the double damage glitch. Double damage glitch is a good bit faster, but it is it's a little bit awkward on your hands. It can really wear on your hand. A little bit rough on that fight, but considering how many runs Dale's actually done, his times are pretty impressive. He's only done maybe 5 or 6 runs, and his times are already getting close to like 145s and stuff like that, which is pretty respectable.
You again?
He's gonna need to heal here. He's scaring me a little bit here. Okay, got it. Yeah, so you can hit this core on the back. If you do break a leg, this core will come out on these boss fights for Soshi and Bokushi. The boss will take increased damage from hits on the core, which is really good. So it looks like Dale went for that method, which is completely fine. It is consistent. It is definitely consistent to just immediately break a leg on the boss and then just one cycle it on the core.
Let's take this bastard down. Right.
Here, that's a pretty good placement. I think he's a little bit confused on. It's hard to really find what placements are good right out of the gate on this fight. You do figure... Okay, so he does have crits too. That's good. I didn't see exactly what chips he has, but he has crits. That's good. Yeah, so I never explained with critical chips. Critical chips will add a percentage chance to crit. Crits will do 500% damage. But obviously with no crit chance, or with no critical chips, you have 0% chance to crit, so you'll never see it. Anytime you hear kind of that glass shattering sound, that is a critical hit.
Damn it! They're two!
9S! It seems the machines on the network have gone berserk. They've sealed off the entrance to the village and are trying to hold them off, but with these weapons, there's only so much we can do.
Let's take these guys out first.
And we're coming up for Core 2. It'll be interesting. Ooh. So Dale is actually going for something here. There is a way to zero cycle this boss. So as you can actually deplete his entire health bar before the little stagger that he just got there. And then you don't have to wait for the core to fall down to kill it.
What happened here?
It's a very tight string of inputs, but using double damage glitch slow-mo is the only way you can really achieve it. Very few runners can do it, and it was interesting to see him try. It was actually a pretty good attempt. He just started, I believe he just started the slow-mo a little bit late. Because it looked like he started slow-mo after like a couple hits.
Everything must die!
And here we're coming into Eve.
Why did you kill my brother?
We'll see. I believe he's got a chance to PB here. He does have a chance to PB. He's got to be careful here. Ooh. Eve hurts really bad. So with the taunt, like, we're doing double damage with the taunt. Or we're doing increased damage, but we're also receiving increased damage. It's very scary. Ooh. Very nice. He did skip platforms. So that scream that you were hearing in the background, that's the noise that Eve makes when he's trying to do platforms. I believe getting a couple of those crits there actually made it so he skipped the platforms phase, because it was very close. The platforms phase is about maybe a 1.5 channel time before he jumps upward, so it's very good. He got the platform skip here.
Analysis. The actions of Unit 9S have an unacceptably low probability of success. Proposal. Enemy unit cut off from network functionality.
Very nice. So again, Dale's PB is 151.55 RTA. The timer being shown is RTA, so he does have about 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes to finish 2 phases here. So he could PB. I'm not sure by how much. It'd probably be a pretty minor one, but it does have a PB chance here. And here we see the other strategy we see runners doing, which is the just doing the pod programs. It is a good bit safer. You are farther away from him, so it is safer. The pod programs do a large chunk of damage, and weaving in the melees is a mid to high level strategy. I do not. I don't hold it against Dale for not going for it right now. He hasn't done a whole lot of runs yet. He has improved pretty quickly. It's one of those things though. You slowly get to add some of these more risky strategies in as you go. Oh, very nice. He did get some melees in there. Good job. That's great. Yeah, it's really scary to do those melees. Without defense buffs, when Eve is taunted, he two-shot kills you. So, some of these attacks being as quick as they are, it's really scary to jump into them and try and do damage. This is very close to PB. Oh my, that was scary. If this PBs, it's gonna be by a couple seconds. It's very close.
It's okay. I can always reload my backup data from the bunker.
But you'll lose you, the you that exists at this very moment.
Guess so. But we can't upload this corrupted data to the bunker. So
9S.
151.51? What is that? That is a 4-second PB. Still a PB, it counts. It counts. Very nice. It was a PB. Unless he has an unsubmitted one. That is the time I have on leaderboards. And we'll see if Dale wants to come in and talk for a bit here. And it looks like we're not going to have Unity right now. He's got a headache, which is completely fine. It was a solid run. We'll see if Dale wants to come in here first.
So,
Hey, that was a PB, wasn't it?
no.
Oh, I thought it was.
Nah. I, took the splits off just so it was easier to put on the layout, so that's probably why it didn't go red. It is 2 minutes off my PB, though, which isn't terrible.
Wait, but the timer there's RTA though, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
But my RTA PB is, I believe, a 149.30?
Oh, yeah. So you must have a run you didn't submit because the one on leaderboards was a 150, 154.
Really?
For RTA,
okay, maybe
yeah.
that is a PB then. Maybe I'm remembering wrong.
Nice. It's very
Especially
small
considering
PB, but nice.
how poorly the beginning went, especially with I like what 6 attempts at bridge skip.
Yeah, bridge looked pretty rough, but at least you didn't void out. I mean, that's
Yeah.
the worst thing you can do there.
Yeah, I've had that happen a couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see what chips you had actually equipped, but I did see you had crits, which was good. Unity
Yeah.
actually got really unlucky. He had like 4 shockwaves and nothing else.
Yeah. I had really bad luck with like when my net was going out and when my capture card decided to crash. It was like right when I was equipping the chips. I had 2 critical +1s.
Nice. That's not too bad at all. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
wondering the whole time because I was just like, I was trying to, try and get both, but Unity was going pretty quick. Had to explain a lot. At the end, I was like focusing so hard. I'm like, can I see a crit? I don't know if he has crits.
Yeah, I mean, that was on my end probably, because I do believe it did crash right as I went into that menu, and I just caught it after I left the menu.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can fix that before my next race, Thursday, but we'll see.
Yep. Yeah, it was a pretty solid run though.
Yeah, I can't complain.
You've been improving quick. Even one of the other ones, like you don't even have a whole lot of runs completed. You've just kind of been practicing, and then if you PB.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I do things. I've done like 5 runs. I learned because the tournament seemed appealing to me, and I thought, okay, that could be a lot of fun. And I've been wanting to learn this anyway because I speedrun other Drakengard games, so why not speedrun them all?
Yep.
And then I went to NASA and forgot pretty much everything, so relearning was interesting.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as bad as the original learning process, obviously.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it you can kind of, even with a short period of time, you can really put some stuff into muscle memory. It's pretty good.
Yeah. It is a lot of fun, though. It's the only one of the Drakengard games I know of that has, like, that much out of bounds, that much movement tech. It's just a lot of fun to pull off, and it looks cool. And one of the things I noticed, and this still makes me salty, but a lot of the skips you see only save like 30 or seconds or less, and they're really hard to pull off. So
Yep.
you usually just end up losing time.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, that's like some of our other runners, they don't even do every skip anymore, or at least at this point in time, because really the skips are kind of just optional. If you feel like doing them, then go for it, but a lot of them save very little time, so sometimes it's just quicker to ignore it.
Yeah, it's really nice, like on the fly routing. I'm ahead, I don't want to screw this up, or I'm ahead, I want to get more ahead. It's a lot of what goes on with it, I think, because usually if I'm ahead, I won't go for things if I didn't get them in my previous run because I'm too afraid I'll screw it up again. Usually the big ones I have to go for are Factory and Mansplaining, because those are like a minute each, I believe.
Yeah, Factory's like around 1.5 minutes, I think, total, if you get the whole thing. And then Mansplaining's about 45 seconds, maybe. It's a good chunk of time.
Yeah, so those are the ones I'll always go for, but I usually don't go for Save Scum. Usually, I mean, I'll go for the Factory, not the Factory, the amusement park discovery skip, but I've only gotten it twice. It's really hard to figure out.
Yeah, that double lift can be a little bit weird. I've actually found closer to the bottom of the route is actually easier than like if you go too far up it. But I mean, everyone learns different, and obviously PS4 with the load times kind of can affect that as well. So I'm not exactly sure on PS4 how the double lift works there.
I remember I spent like half an hour trying to learn Mama Skip, and I have not gotten it once because I can't get the double lift, and I think that is just PS4 hardware.
Yeah, Tech actually figured out a way to do that skip besides using a double lift. It's still kind of weird, and it's a little bit slower, but it's kind of cool that he found a different way than we were used to.
Yeah, and that's another thing I noticed learning. Like a lot of the skips, you have a V1, V2, a V3, V3.5. There's a lot of different options even within the skips.
Yeah, I like it. It's really, it's flexible. Like everyone kind of has what they're consistent with, and that's what they're gonna do. Skips are kind of, with so many movement options, you can kind of throw whatever together that works for you, and there's no problems with doing it a different way than someone else. It still saves time, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
It's been a lot of fun so far. I've been enjoying it. Looking forward to the rest of the tournaments, tournament races. I missed a lot of it. The top 16 is what you're doing?
It should be the top 2 from each group will advance, and then from there it'll be double elimination.
Yeah, the top 16 is going to be hype though, because it's going to be like probably the top 16 of the leaderboard, and they're all getting really close to each other. So,
yeah,
like what, the top 10 now are sub 130.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. This tournament has really brought back some of our old runners, pushed newer runners to learn, and it's been really cool to see the progressions here. We've had a lot of improvement, a lot of tournament PBs, surprising number of tournament PBs. I think we're around maybe even above 10. It's a good amount, and we haven't even played like half the matches. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's all I got. So I don't know if you have anything else, any other thoughts on the run.
I mean, I'm gonna need to practice the beginning more, apparently.
It's a tough part to practice. Yeah, prologue is arguably the hardest part to optimize, and
yeah,
it's well, desert's not much easier. I still have issues with desert.
Yeah, I was really nervous going into city angles because I think I was talking about it before I started, before we actually went live. Yesterday I was doing a practice run, and I got the city angles and everything was going like alright. I was a bit behind my PB, and then I got the jumping over the invisible wall, and then I fell and soft locked the game. So I was kind of afraid that would happen again, and that's probably a lot of why I missed it. So just followed angles because I didn't want to do the backup strat and then fall off.
Yeah. Yep. That was a solid run.
Can't complain.
Yep. Yeah, great run from both runners. I just wanted to go ahead and put out a thank you for all the viewers, everyone in the community involved. Kanaris for almost single-handedly organizing this entire tournament. All the help we've had running it from Speed Gaming and all of our other mods. We do have a Discord if you are interested in the run. It should be discord.nierspeedrun.com. Follow our runners here. Don't follow me, but there's me anyway. And here are some useful links for the tournament. And with that, that's all I've got left to say. So I guess we'll hand it back to Speed Gaming. I'm not sure what else they have left on their schedule. I know at the same time as this run, we had another race start between MASH and Fudge Cow. I'm not sure if that's still running, but if so, you could check that out on Speed Gaming too. I don't believe we have any more matches for today. I believe the rest of the Automata matches will resume starting tomorrow. I believe that there's one tomorrow. So yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Thanks for coming by, everybody.